A dull thud. The heavy coffin, slipping from the shoulders of the exhausted pallbearers, crashed onto the damp ground with a deafening crack. The lid nearly flew off. The crowd gasped, frozen in superstitious dread. A bad omen. And then, as if in a nightmare, the bottom of the expensive, velvet-lined box cracked with a sickening crunch, and dry, lifeless sand poured out, mocking their grief. Sand? Where was Ethan's body? A wave of panicked whispers swept through the cemetery, escalating into a murmur of outrage and fear. Suddenly, from the freshly dug grave, a gaping black void, a faint groan filled with inhuman despair, reached them. People rushed to the pit. At the bottom, bound and wrapped in black fabric, lay a man. If not for the cracked bottom of the coffin, the unfortunate man would have been buried alive. When Ethan, alive with strands of hair turned grey from terror, was pulled from the earthly trap, and Serafina, his grieving widow, quickly disappeared, having managed to flee to Italy, leaving behind a trail of questions and a monstrous crime he couldn't recover for a long time. The world swayed, but through the fog of shock, one name pounded in his temples like an alarm bell. Sophia. Sophia. His Sophia. As if in a dream, he saw her eyes full of youthful love back then, 15 years ago, in their small village where they grew up side by side. Their names were whispered as one. Their friendship, strong as ancient oaks, blossomed into a true, all-consuming love. They made plans, bold and bright. Graduation, Sophia's white lace dress, which she had already prepared, dreaming of saving for their wedding. Then, the registry office, university, a life full of happiness, together, forever. But fate, cunning and unpredictable, struck mercilessly a month before graduation, when happiness seemed so close. Sophia's mother fell ill. Suddenly, terribly, she lost consciousness right at work and never returned from the district hospital. She died a week before the celebration her daughter had so eagerly awaited. Sophia's world collapsed. Black darkness swallowed all colours. There could be no talk of graduation, no talk of a wedding. Ethan was there, his heart breaking with pain for his beloved. He supported her as best he could. Sophia was grief-stricken. Her mother was everything to her, her only family. And Ethan, of course. Their studies were postponed for a year. It seemed things couldn't get worse. But misfortunes never come alone. In autumn, the postman brought Ethan a draft notice. 18. The army. If he had enrolled in university, he would have had a deferment. But as it was, boots, barracks, separation. Sophia, pale with eyes swollen from tears, swore to wait, to be faithful. Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned with unwavering resolve. 15 years passed. Long, agonizing 15 years. Ethan never returned to his native village after the army. Life twisted him in a wild whirlwind. Even during his service with new comrades, he caught fire with a business idea. They opened a firm. Things went uphill. Success, money, and an emptiness in his soul that nothing could fill. Only one thing remained: marrying Serafina, the daughter of a local general. The girl was not very beautiful. She had a venomous character, but her father's money covered all her flaws, blinding Ethan with false hope. He decided he would write to Sophia about contract service and marry Serafina. An insane plan matured in his head. Divorce in a year, split the business, take the money, and return to Sophia, rich, capable of providing her with a heavenly life. He wouldn't even tell her about the marriage, just lose his passport with the stamps. What naivety! What blind self-confidence! Ethan loved Sophia, but he chose a monstrous path too, as he believed, give her happiness. He only failed to consider one thing: the soul of the woman he was betraying. Serafina knew about Sophia. When Ethan sent his lying letter about the contract, the general's daughter immediately struck back. She wrote Sophia the whole truth, that she and Ethan loved each other, that they were married, and she included a photograph. Sophia couldn't believe it. Her Ethan betrayed her, but there it was, the proof, lying on the table, burning with cold, a wedding photo. Him, in his formal military uniform, beaming and next to him, a dazzling brunette in a lavish white dress with a predatory smile on bright red lips. Sophia's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. But after losing her mother, she was already difficult to break. Grief had hardened her, turning tears into steel. Now she didn't just suffer, she burned with fury. Her first thought was to go, pull the hair of the arrogant woman who stole him, fight for what was hers. But then icy calm settled over her soul. She would let him go, let him live as he wished, as long as he never appeared in her life again. She was disgusted even thinking about him. Sophia wrote him a final, farewell letter. Short, sharp. She informed him that she hadn't waited, had gotten married, and was unbelievably happy. She had no photos, of course, but the words sounded so convincing that there was no doubt. Upon receiving the letter, Ethan roared with rage and despair. He wanted to rush to the village immediately, find out everything, get her back. But Seraphina already held him in a death grip. She met him at the train station, her eyes gleaming with cold steel. "If you leave, you don't need to come back," she hissed. And he, like a beaten dog, trudged after her. And then there was a drinking binge, a week of incessant drunkenness, fog, pain. He came to when his father-in-law, the general, literally dunked him like a kitten into a bath of ice water. Since then, Ethan pulled himself together. He tried not to think about Sophia. Only sometimes, in moments of particularly sharp longing, he would think, what if? What if Sophia's mother hadn't died? What if they had gone to study? Would they be together now, happy? They couldn't have children with Seraphina. He threw himself into work. Only there could he avoid seeing his wife's haughty face, avoid hearing her eternal nagging. Seraphina was never happy. Everything was always wrong for her. Thus, 15 years passed, empty, joyless. And then Ethan suddenly died. Seraphina organised a lavish funeral with all honours. She already had experience. Her father had died not long before. A funeral procession, a brass band, Seraphina in black, inconsolably weeping. And that was when the nightmare with the coffin, the sand, and the moan from the grave happened. It turned out that Seraphina, after her father's death, decided to take over his entire business, which he had rashly signed over to Ethan. He wouldn't have given it up voluntarily. She bribed people, gave her husband a powerful sedative from abroad. When he fell asleep, she announced his death. Fearing he would wake up too soon, they placed him, tied up, in the pit, and filled the coffin with sand. The loud crash of the falling coffin saved Ethan's life. He woke up in the grave. 15 years of deception, pain, and emptiness had led him here, to the edge of the grave from which he was miraculously pulled out. Ethan didn't file a complaint against Seraphina. She disappeared, leaving him everything and oppressive freedom. Now he wanted only one thing, to return home, to his native village. He ached with longing for the places where he grew up. He dreamed of walking the familiar streets, swimming in the river. He tried not to think about Sophia, fearing to reopen old wounds. But it was her he met on the way to the village. The bus kicked up dust on the familiar road, and suddenly he saw her. Sophia. She had hardly changed. The same proud posture, the same eyes, in which the sky seemed to be reflected. Time had only added some special, mature beauty to her. Ethan's heart pounded in a frantic rhythm. He lunged out of the bus, barely waiting for it to stop, and rushed towards Sophia. They stood still, looking into each other's eyes, unable to look away, words stuck in their throats. And then, as if by an unknown signal, they simultaneously stepped forward and collapsed into each other's arms, releasing years of unspoken pain and undying love. In the evening, they sat in her cosy kitchen, drinking fragrant herbal tea. The silence was filled with so much unspoken emotion that it seemed palpable. Ethan, shy as a boy, asked, "And where is your husband, Sophia?" She looked at him calmly, and in her eyes he saw no reproach, no anger, only a deep, hidden sadness. "I was never married, Ethan." Then she took out the very letter from Seraphina, the very wedding photograph from an old jewellery box. Suddenly, their quiet conversation was interrupted by a boy rushing into the room. A teenager, about 15, with a mop of dark hair and piercing eyes. "Mom, can I go fishing?" he asked brightly. Sophia nodded tenderly. Ethan looked at the boy, and icy cold gripped his heart. The boy was his spitting image from his youth. With lips dry from emotion, he whispered, afraid to hear the answer. "Sophia, who is the father of this boy? Leo." She looked at him with a long, sad gaze and quietly replied, "He's sitting right in front of me." Tears streamed from Ethan's eyes. He fell to his knees before Sophia, before his son, begging for forgiveness, unable to find words to express the depth of his remorse and pain. A month later, their wedding took place. Quiet, without lavish celebrations, but filled with true, hard-won happiness. Despite 15 years of separation, lies, and unimaginable suffering, they had finally found each other.